Okay, now welcome to everyone. We are here for our second webinar from our webinar CONFAB series. That will be a series of monthly webinars that will last until the end of 2022. I think isn't it, Marianne? Marianne could help us or could help on this. And before we start with our presentation from today, we will share some information about our network and why we are here today. So our network is focused on rural needs, and it has around 33 countries and more than 100 participants from several different countries. The network is focused, as I said, on rural needs, and as the goal is to establish a network with the inclusive multi-stakeholders representation of different countries, of these 33 countries. And the main goal is to foster the knowledge, skills and best practices exchange, and to find some key issues related to that can promote and develop public policies and help stakeholders to advance in this area. And we have a main goal that is to develop a rural needs online observatory. The idea is to launch this observatory around 2013, and the idea is to have a common base research platform to work after the end of our network, and we are now working on that. The network, the cross-section is organized in 4 different working groups. The first working group is focused on social networks and social inclusion. The second working group is focused on formal and non-formal education. The third working group is focused on employment and services in rural areas. And the fourth working group is focused on rural needs and sustainability. It is to focus in the main issues related to rural needs and to work on that in different working groups. And we are welcome everyone who wish to become a member. That could find information in our platform, in our website, in how to become a member, and as also a brief description of each of these working groups that could help you to choose and to find reasons to become a member. I would like to share some of our deliverables and events that we have been developing in the past 2-3 years, 2.5 years, more or less. We have developed a series, I think is 14 national reports that have some kind of overview of rural needs situation in 14 countries. This example is the one from Portugal, but we have these national reports from several countries in this time frame for 2009 to 2019. We also have developed a manual for the classification of intervention best practice with rural needs that is a deliverable very interesting for the researchers that work on the field and work with rural needs, that have some kind of clues and information about best practices. We also had an international online conference in Lisbon in the beginning of 2021. During this period, several researchers have published some interesting articles. This is an example of one of the last ones, the lessons on building more sustainable rural societies, youth and mobility from our members. This is another one. We have also had a special issue in Youth and Society about the challenge associated with European rural needs, youth and inclusion. And more recently, we also have developed a series or kind of series of policy briefs. One focused on mobility and rural areas, and the other one is related with formal education in rural areas. And you have all these deliverables and outputs available in our website. Also like to finalize, we also like to share with you a call for papers that is now ongoing. This for our first international conference on rural youth and the new youth guarantee that will be in September in Brescia. And you are all welcome to propose a paper and to join us in Brescia in September. And you can also find this information in our website. So it was a brief presentation of our network. And now we are going to pass to our webinar. That will be today. We want to welcome to. Sorry if I'm not saying some name correctly. You can help me on this. We are welcoming Stelios Gialis he's associate professor from the University of Aegean in Greece. His research interests lie on the intersection of labor geography and the study of spatial divisions of various forms of employment. He is also the coordinator and the principal investigator and coordinator of EEA grants, also EEA grants project that's named YOUTHShare project. That and is also with us Effie, it's right, Effie, that is a PhD candidate in economic and labor geography, also at University of Aegean, and is also participating in this grants project, YOUTHShare. And finally, we have Tina, that is also a PhD student affiliated in the Department of Geography, also at University of Aegean. And that is also working on this project that we are going. I guess we are going to hear more on during their presentation. So the floor is yours. You can start your presentation. And welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting us.
For inviting us. It's me, and my name is Akina. So I am a researcher at the YOUTHShare project with Professor Gialis and Effie. And so let me share my screen to share with you some of our findings so far. So can you see my screen? Is it okay?
Yes.
Sorry, Tina, before you started, sorry, I forgot to say, we will have some kind of 30 minutes of presentation from you, and then we'll have a space for questions and for comments on the presentation. Okay,
30 minutes for all of us. Let's not frighten people.
No, not for all.
3 of us, yes.
10 minutes for each one, or more or less, as you wish.
Yes, so thank you. Yes, would like to share with you some of our findings from our research, which is focused on youth vulnerability in the Pace and speciality may affect the youth prospects regions. So the main and some of these findings are published in the Young magazine recently, so you can find more about it. The research objectives were to study the
Sorry, Atina, I think we have some problem with your audio.
Perhaps, Mariano, perhaps we can ask Effie to start, and then Athena can use the computer of Effie in the meantime. Effie, you start. Technical instances.
No matters.
So I think that you see my presentation, okay? Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Hello.
We are hearing you. Yes.
Effie Emmanouil. I'm also a PhD candidate at the Geography Department of the University of the Aegean in Greece, located in the North Aegean. And I'm going to present you our work, which is submitted and is going to be published on the Journal of Youth Studies regarding spatialities of being a young NEET in an era of turbulence, a critical account of regional resilience across the Mediterranean EU South. Did this research because we wanted to give a theoretical advancement of how resistance against external shocks could be conceptualized across the young cohorts of the labor force. The reference period of our study is from 2008 to 2018, and we have divided this period from 2008 to 2013, which is the recession period. We are referring to the debt crisis period of 2008, and from 2014 to 2018, which is the stabilization and weak recovery period. We use a theoretical framework, the geographical political economy, and also as a methodology, we used mixed methods. And we are also focusing on the regions of Greece, Italy, Spain, and Cyprus. We did this work because we tried to combine regional resilience and youth vulnerability in labor markets, because a lot of scholars, when they are examining regional resilience, they often neglect to examine youth labor markets, young cohorts, I mean, and also scholars, sometimes when they examine youth vulnerability, they often overlook to examine regional resilience as well. So we try to do this combination. It's a notion that was adopted from other disciplines, I think from biology, but I'm not so, I think from biology. But now is also adapted from other fields of study, and also economic geographers use this notion. A region is resilient when it can cope with economic uncertainty and withstand large job losses when faced with external shocks. So we're trying to combine these two notions in our work. Some here. We use the recovery and the resistance indices for youth employment and for NEETs. because we have do these calculations for a lot of subgroups of needs, because as you know, needs are a very heterogeneous group. So we did this for this needs subgroups, and we also have used qualitative methods. We have interviewed 12 key informants, and we asked them to assess our quantitative data and also to give their insights regarding needs, youth labor markets, and so on. In this map, we can see that the NEET rate in 2018 and the NEET change of rate, this period that we study. So we see that the bad performers, let's say, are located, most of them, regarding the NEET rates in South, and also the good performers are located in the Italian so we saw that peripheral, rural, isolated, and sometimes island regions have small resilience capacity. Of course, there are some exceptions, such as Tuscany. And during the recovery period, the period that we have a weak recovery, Extremadura, Campania, and Sicily were also less resilient to needs. So we saw that also in this region, we have weak industrial base and specific development pathways. These regions were among the regions with the lowest GDP per capita in relation to their national average. So discussing our findings with the key informants, we have found main factors such as path-dependent processes, which means that geography and history matters for young and youth labor markets. Also, labor market segmentation. Employers do not want to hire low-skilled people, and also people with specific religious patterns. And also, we found that regions specialized in sectors with prevalence of low-paid jobs, such as working in the fields or having, let's say, an inferior position in the international division of labor, such as North Aegean, also are factors of youth vulnerability. Concluding, these are the factors that we have revealed of our analysis. So what we saw is that in the European South, youth vulnerability is a matter of structure, of the structure regime of the regions, rather than a matter of agency. So thank you. I hope to be quick. Now we're going to change our seats.
A team changed to our computer. Is that
going to change seats with Athena? Athena will sit here now in order to do her presentation. Okay.
Yes, Effie, proceed.
So can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
Of course.
Yes.
Okay, I am really sorry for this. So, continue. So we have focused on youth vulnerability, going through the NEETs index, people who are not in employment, education, or training, as Effie already told you, focused in the youth spaces of the EU South. So we studied the geographically and temporally and even expansion of NEETs between 2008 and 2018 in the NUTS 2 regions of Greece, Italy, Spain, and Cyprus, focused with a particular focus on young people between 15, especially on women. We employed a mixed methods approach by analyzing both quantitative and qualitative data. So we tried to answer these questions, which are the key factors that determine the disparities in NEET rates across the regions of the EU South in the study period and during that decade, and how does spatiality affect the prospects of young people, especially young women in the EU South. So we did a quantitative analysis of secondary data and employed descriptive statistics and statistical tests with specific particular variables, socioeconomic variables compared to the NEET rates. And we analyzed semi-structured interviews with 30 female NEET from all these 4 countries. So as Effie already told you, NEETs are those who are unemployed or inactive and are not receiving any formal or non-formal education or training. But in order to study youth vulnerability and young needs, we started from studying how we theorize and how we describe youth, how we define youth and how we valorize youth. So apart from the temporal markers regarding the age, biological age and some biographical milestones, which are the entrance of young people into the labor market and the creation of family. We bring to the front that space plays a crucial role in how youth develops in different parts of the world and how this interaction, spatiality affect youth vulnerability. So we employed the term of youth spaces, which signify the ways local to global, material or digital spaces affect the development of young people and how these shape the development of youth and how in turn are being shaped by their everyday praxis and life stories. So in our quantitative analysis, we examined the NEET rates throughout the decade of people 15 to 29 in the NUTS 2 regions of Spain, Greece, and Cyprus. And we examined the over-concentrations where NEET rates are over-concentrated by using the location quotient indicator. And we examined the statistical differences between NEET rates and the GDP per capita, regional household income, regional participation in tertiary education, and regional share of female early school leavers. So, and then we examined the bivariate correlation between the NEET rates and these variables. So as we can see regarding the concentration of NEET rates, we can see in this map in red, where the highest NEET rates are concentrated for 2018. And we can see that those are in the south of Italy and in several regions of Greece, which is not the case in Spain or in the north of Italy. So although it's not, the relation is not statistically significant, we can see that most needs are concentrated in peripheral regions rather than in metropolitan, and in insular rather than in continental. So the relation is statistically significant with regions where the GDP per capita is low, and as well as the annual household income, and there is low participation of young people in tertiary education. So more specifically, here we can see in these figures in A and B, the inversely proportional relation between NEET rate and GDP per capita in A, and annual household income in B, where the highest NEET rates are in Greek regions and in the less developed regions of Italy, that we know that they are located in the south of Italy. And in the rest figures, we can see that there's low participation in tertiary education and at the same time high NEET rates in Italy, and high female early school leaving in Spain, although this does not affect that much the NEET rates. From the qualitative analysis, from the analysis of the semi-structured interview, we had some common findings from the participants. So all of them were female, so all of them shared the gender discrimination they have experienced in both education and in employment, and also class-related obstacles they have faced in order to enter the labor market. There are significant discrepancies between metropolitan and peripheral regions, with female NEETs saying that they have less employment opportunities and more precarious employment opportunities in the peripheral regions. The high demands of the labor market, so demanding skills mix, qualifications and experience, work experience. And the main thing was that it was common, the employment precarious for most participants. Other than that, participants from Cyprus said that an extra obstacle is the high cost of education in Cyprus. So overall, we have seen that there is a geographically uneven youth unemployment and inactivity in the regions of the EU South, with some regions being more, NEET rates being more persistent in some regions, particularly these are the peripheral ones. So we conclude that there is a vulnerability is linked to peripheral youth spaces of the EU South. And behind that, we find that there are some regional path-dependent structures and dynamics regarding the economic specialization of the regions that affect the NEET rates and consequently youth vulnerability. Also some formal institutions regarding the employment policies and skills mix market demands, the access and quality of the educational system and job support seems that in most cases are insufficient. And also the role social ties and the multi-scale agency plays in various actors regard the social norms regarding the gender or class and the formal institution overall regarding the agency of the young people develop in order to navigate. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. So it's my turn now. Again,
Thank you.
Yes. Can you see my screen? Okay.
So,
I'm starting. Hope we don't have any further technical interruptions. Thank you again for inviting us. After the good presentations, I believe that they were very good. Although I wouldn't like to bless my family, but I liked them a lot. After the good presentations of Effie and Athena, I would like to summarize and offer some, arguments for wider research. And I would also like you to reflect on these arguments, because many of you attending are living in the European South. So this is a good way to test the validity of what we are saying through your experiences and through your ideas and your critical discussion. My first remark is that after 3 or more years, 3 years or so, doing research on the issue of needs, on the statistical category of needs, I am more or less sure that there is no such person as a need. So by saying this, I'm trying to say that need is not a homogeneous category of people that you can easily find out there. It is comprised, it's in fact a grouping of statistical variables, and being need can mean very different things. There are rich needs and poor needs. There are very young needs and there are older needs. There are needs that are not in education but would like to work, and there are needs that do not feel that they can work. Okay, so we should be careful when we are using the term need, because it can signify very different things. The second remark I would like to stress is that according to the statistics, there are thousands of needs out there, but believe me, you cannot easily find them. This is another issue, distinct from what's said in remark 1, and it has to do with that many of these people are not feeling good, are feeling sane with being not in employment, education, or training. It also has to do that with many of these people are informally working. So when you ask them, are you a need? They may answer to you that I'm not a need. We have to be careful again when trying to reach needs, to reach young people that are not in education, employment, and training. The factors that determine the high prevalence of needs in Southern EU, they were already mentioned by Athena and Effie. You can find many young needs in socioeconomically deprived youth spaces and areas. So in most cases, poorer regions, isolated regions, or poor, less affluent spaces within rich regions are reproducing needs. Perhaps, let's say, we have a lower need rate in Milano, in Lombardia, but there are less affluent neighborhoods within Lombardia that have high need rates. The second factor is these young people are mostly concentrated in peripheral and marginalized areas, and they feel economic, social, or psychological exclusion, which is in turn related to the remoteness and the isolation of their areas. So here we can see the reproduction between space and the need statistical category, the need concentration. The third factor, which is related to the previous one, is that the level of economic prosperity, of economic growth in a region, and also the specialization of the region, are factors that are related, that are strongly and positively related with youth unemployment and inactivity. So highly specialized regions, such as the touristic ones, in a strange way have high need rates. This is perhaps This should be related perhaps to the seasonal activity, to the seasonal tourism prevalence, but also it's related to that many of these young people are working informally. A lot of discussion can be done here. It's not the time, we don't have the space now to discuss all these issues, but in general terms, peripheral, highly specialized regions are related to high NEET rates. Now, high NEET rates, high prevalence of young people that are not in education or training or are not working are related to poor institutional functioning of these areas or regions. So if we don't have strong schools, public funded schools, if we don't have strong employment protection laws, if we don't have welfare policies, then we expect to see high NEET rates. It's more or less, you know, a uniform, linear relation, despite of the, let's say, the outliers here or the exceptions. The role of education is highly important, along with the role of the economy, of course, which is, I think the economy has a priority. It's the first and the most important factor, but education is also a very significant factor, a very significant institution affecting the NEET rates in a region. And then we have the role of informal practices and informal institutions like family networks, family support, etc., informal work, which the impact of these informal practices is very contradictory and ambiguous. On the one hand, informal practices offer a safety net to young NEETs, so they can gain an income through informal work. But on the other hand, informal social ties, informal support from the family is in many cases related to youth inactivation. So they gain, they are not gaining, in fact, they retrieve, they get a share from the family income, and they are not motivated to change things and to go out and find a job, because of course there are not many good jobs in their regions, but they are also not motivated to do something, even to fight and resist against this reality. These were the most important factors I would like to outline. I wouldn't like to go into details and you know, spend your time. Many of these results and factors are analyzed in the publications we are doing. Many of them are also known through other publications and the work you are already doing, Mariano, Tatiana, etc. Thanks and congratulations for sharing this work with us. Now, proposals. If we want to see lower NEET rates in the European South, we need strong welfare policies and some youth-oriented socioeconomic practices. We don't have strong welfare policies in our areas, and this reproduces a vicious circle of unemployment, seasonal informal work, unmotivated engagement, poor educational structures, etc., etc. We need to fund institutions, to fund good practices in order to gain better results. We are doing, in fact, the governments in the area are doing exactly the opposite. They are introducing austerity cuts, less benefits for the young people, etc., etc. This is my idea for most of the cases and for most of the countries. So we need a new socioeconomic regime, a new socioeconomic pattern of economy, of functioning of the economy that leads to more good and well-paid jobs, especially for the young people. If we are giving a first wage of 600 euros and young people need to pay 500 euros for rent, then they cannot start their life. They are living in precariousness. But the official minimum wage for young people in my country, let's say in Greece, is indeed 600 euros. Some ideas that can be used along with my basic belief that young people should develop their agency and fight this reality, fight against this reality, is that regions need good universities and, in general terms, a good and strong regional innovation system. They also, regions, I mean, have also to advance their institutional capacity to reduce the bureaucracy they usually offer in order to, put some hard time upon the young people in the areas. They should develop well-functioning employment services, etc., etc. If they want to see their young people activated and at the same time do not fleeing the area, do not leaving the area, do not migrate, then they should do all these things as well. And also, finally, all the regions, even the touristic ones, should develop a diversified economic base and a more collaborative and less profit-oriented economic base in order to distribute the risk among generations, in order to develop better and well-paid jobs, and in order to keep the young people of their area in place and motivated. These were the main factors, remarks and policy proposals I wanted to stress. I hope they were useful. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the three interesting and completed presentation that give us several information that I think it will be interesting to debate and comment. The floor is open to questions and comments also. Someone wishes to make a question or a comment on the presentations?
We also have a pilot in the company, and I'm kind of anxious. An aircraft pilot.
Oh, it's Slaven, yes. Slaven is also
I'm feeling some kind of turbulence. Be careful, Slaven.
Tatiana, may I?
Yes, Claudia, welcome.
Okay.
Hi.
Stelios, I heard that you mentioned that the most important area, let's say, for intervention is economy, because it's very important for needs, but also education. Why you put economy on the first place and not education? Because maybe if we have a better education system, we can solve some part of the economic problems, let's say, and economic deficiencies in some regions. I know that, yes, we would like to have youth in some regions, but we could have also the mobility of the workforce, and is no need to stay in one place. They can move. The problem is that they want to move from rural areas to urban areas, and that's why we have a lot of depopulation in rural areas. But why we should not invest more, let's say, in education system than in economic system?
Well, thanks. It's a very good question, and the answer is very simple. Although both are very important, I strongly believe that education per se cannot create jobs. The jobs are created in the economy. So if you don't have a well-functioning regional or local economy with many firms, with public institutions, with employers seeking to hire people, then you do not have jobs, even if you have very well-educated people. Of course, education can increase the capacities of some people and can create a better match on the regional level. But I think that the forest and not the tree, the forest is that there are several thousands of good jobs missing in our areas. And this is why the young people, as you rightly mentioned, are not just living to reach the metropolitan areas, they are also leaving our countries, and this is a common pattern in all South, and they are trying to find a job in Northern Europe. And the secret behind this movement, the population of our countries as a whole, is related to that they are able to gain a better and a decent income in Northern Europe, at least comparatively to what they can gain in our countries. So I strongly believe that there is a priority to the economy, but of course, better education can help. This is my answer.
I agree with you, but sometimes we have in Romania the problem that we lack labor force, and we are trying to find labor force well qualified and so on. But another problem is what you mentioned, decent income, because we have a lot of poverty in work, unfortunately, and if you propose them to hire on the minimum income, it's very difficult to make them go to these jobs.
Yes, I mean, let me give you an example from Greece. There are many Greeks living in Germany, in UK, etc., that would love to return back to Greece, but many of them accept proposals. But most of the proposals are for a salary, let's say, of 1,500 euros. It's not that in the UK or in Germany they are earning 10,000 euros, but they are earning more than 1,500 euros. So it's not easy for them to decide to return back to the country, because there is a gap in their earnings, let's say. That same way, there are young unemployed people, even in touristic regions, that they prefer to be sustained and funded by the families instead of going out and work in the tourism sector for 700 euros per month, but for 7 days per week and 12 hours per day, because these are the service hours, let's say, when working for a 5-star rated hotel somewhere in Rhodes, Crete, etc. 700 euros for working 12 hours a day. So they say, okay, there's no reason to do this, let's avoid it. This is why I believe that the economy has a priority, and that there must be a new regulation of certain things in order to be able to turn the structures into a more youth-friendly, let's say, pattern.
I agree with you, but unfortunately, we have a lot of hopes from the discussions on minimum wage at the European level, but at the end, I think will not be so good for our countries, let's say.
Yes, Slaven?
Captain Slaven.
Captain
Okay, many greetings to all of you. Thank you for your presentation. Kalispera to my colleagues from Greece. Okay, one question regarding regions you investigated. So your research you presented today is based on the NEETs or the NEETs 2 regions. So I have a question. As you research labor market and issues connected with labor market, I don't know, and I'm not familiar with wider context of your research, but the NEETs regions are administrative regions based from the administrative decision from the European Union, more or less. So how do you overcome potential problems if you faced with the problems of for example, gravitational impact of the cities as a labor market is not only limited on the NEETs region. So or for example, as I said, gravitational impact of the labor of the cities or some other labor markets. So did you maybe consider to use some other region as a base for your research? Because you mentioned, I wrote here some for example, some regional structures, formal institutions must be more developed. You mentioned factor 2, factor 3, which is let's say more wider than NEETs 2 or NEETs 3 whatsoever region, because geography is not limited to NEETs region, but maybe we could discuss more about geographical region, or I don't know, traditional region, radical region, homogeneous region. So have you maybe did you maybe have a problem with the region depending on your research in the wider context?
Now, do you want to start and say why we are only restricted, let's say, to the
yes, maybe that. Yeah.
And then I will talk also.
Yeah.
Yes, I think this is indeed a problem, because we acknowledge that NEETs 2 regions is, as you said, an administrative classifications of otherwise dissimilar areas geographically and in many ways dissimilar, but it is an administrative classification. But it was maybe the only way known to us that we could access available data and reliable data, so we could compare different regions of the EU South. So this is the main reason.
Okay.
I think other than that, besides Eurostat, where we found our data regarding NEETs and the other variables that we analyzed, I think it is important when it comes to governing of these regions. It makes a difference whether it's a metropolitan or a peripheral regions, and this has an impact on NEETs, although they are not homogeneous regions. So I don't know if
yes, okay. Well, I completely understand, because I am a geographer from the University of Zagreb, Faculty of Science, Department of Geography, and I deal with the transportation geography mainly. So I have the same problem considering statistical data. NEETs regions are the best choose, because on the other level it is impossible or hard possible to get some statistical data. On the other hand, I also have the same problem compared to you, because just for example, physical mobility of not only young people, but other people are going behind NEETs regions, everyday mobility, going to work, impact of some cities, gravitational regions, gravitational impacts of cities, of labor markets, and some internal migrations are behind or above NEETs region. So it's very hard for geographers, as basically you are also, as I am. It's very hard to overcome. We need to concentrate on something, but it's, on the other hand, it's sometimes complicated to discuss it only on the NEETs region. So yes, I agree fully. So I was thinking, is there maybe some other reason, but only data, but it's expectable, of course.
Exactly. We are also calculating some concentration indexes, the location quotient, Slaven, etc. And there is a more, let's say, advanced version of the LQ, of the location quotient, which is spatially weighted according to the population of the regions, or the active population of the regions. We have not implemented yet, to be honest. But the reality is that the only thing we have talking about, quantitative data is data that come from labor force survey, and they are available and representative, statistically representative, only at the NUTS2 level. So this is life, and this is why we also use. Yes, this is also we also use mixed methods. We add also a qualitative picture into the analysis in order to be more. Thank you. Good, but methodologically advanced question.
Yes. Okay. Well, only maybe some proposal for your next, some research to maybe research some labor markets or impact of cities, but not on the NUTS region level, but maybe on some other gravitational geographical impact on some space. So you are based on the island, so maybe it's a little bit different. As I know, your university is on the Lesbos, right? Island, or
I will share my email with you. Please send me
privately
all your ideas, and we would like to exchange. We would love to.
I would be glad. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you too.
More questions? If you questions, I would like to also to make a comment and a question if it's.
Yes, and perhaps may I say something, Tatiana, for a minute, for 2 seconds?
Yes,
Constantino Kunas, who is also working with us on NEETs from Italy, has to say something about the NEET situation in Italy, which is up to him.
Welcome.
Good morning. I'm out of my office. I'm in Greece at this time, but I would like to say something about the situation in Italy, because at this time I work a lot with NEETs, also for other projects, and I could say that for them it's very difficult to find a job. And now also there is a revenue from the Italian government. So you know that the medium revenue for a NEET for the first work is about 700 euros in Italy, I mean. So they prefer to have the revenue from the government and to take almost 500 euros and to not work, especially for now from the situation from COVID, etc. And it's also very, very difficult to find NEETs that are available to start a company on its own. I mean, they would like to work for others, but not on his own. We have a lot of projects in Italy regarding microcredits that are aimed to help the NEETs to start their own job, but they are not going to use this money and to work on this field. So now in Italy for the summer, there is a very big problem that is also very often speaked in the TV, in the television, because we don't have a person for the summer, for the works. I mean, a waitress. I mean, for the hotels, for the restaurants, because as I told you, they prefer the revenue for the government than to go to work, because it is a cost for them to work, because now the fuel is very high. To buy a car is very difficult, and so they prefer to wait for a better situation. And I think that if in Italy, but I think also in Greece, the government doesn't do something in order to increase the minimum level of the revenue, it will be very difficult for the NEETs to enter the labor market. This is the situation, and this is something that I will discussing about also with in other projects and also with local government, etc.
Thank you, Constantino. It is interesting because during the presentations, I see that Portugal was his analysis, because it's similar, the situation that still is Athena and Elie described this, and that you also now describe. We have also the same problem. We also stress that many of the policies are more related to entrepreneurship and to microcredit, than that are not really active policy promote the inclusion of in the labor market. There are more policies related with that. And I also find interesting this concept of regional. I think it is in the light of the crisis, the economic crisis that you referred. Also, I think we'll be seeing overview on this. If you are the recent data related to the pandemic, I know that you didn't reach that data, that time frame, but so this is interesting to have an overview. Also, this causality language is also a concept, because we very different kinds of people have various
Sorry, Tatiana, but you have some difficulties or issues with the area.
Now you are.
Maybe you can turn off the video, maybe to better.
Okay, now.
Yeah.
You better now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I have a interesting remark. Is also that we really have to, when we analyze this, but to find them in so how did you read the
Tatiana, we cannot hear you well. Maybe you should reconnect.
Maybe Isabel have some question, and you can write your question on the chat, Tatiana.
Yes, I will do that.
Okay.
Yes.
And Isabel, if you have some questions. We can hear you, Isabel. No. Today we have some issues with the audio of the users because we can hear Isabel.
The cables are getting very hot, Mariano, due to the...
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
With a heat wave here in the south. Maybe Isabel, if you want to write your question on the chat, we can see your question, and also Tatiana. And I think with this couple questions, we can make some resume. Okay, Tatiana, did you reach NEETs in your qualitative study? Is the question of Tatiana. Some of you, Athena, Effie.
How did you reach NEETs in your qualitative study? Athena, would you like to say, Effie? Effie, you may start.
Try to do it with several ways, but we try to find these people because, as mentioned before, it is not so easy to find the people defined as a need, because sometimes you have to explain what need means. Need is a notion adopted from the European Union. So also, in some cases, you go to the employment services and you tell about needs, and some of them do not know what need means. Anyway, we try to find people from some social structures, because also the study was also for migrants and women. So we try to contact the social structures, because here in the North Aegean also we have such kind of structures for migrants. And also we try to go to other, to the employment services, and also from people who were familiar to some people. So there was a kind of snowball procedure, and this is the method that we have followed. But still is a very, we have a lot of, inactivity, youth inactivity and youth unemployment, but also is a big problem to contact to needs, even in places that are not, in places that have also high need rates.
Okay, thank you, Athena. We have the question of Isabel, and then we have one more from Claudia. Isabel said, are working trainings matching needs in rural areas?
Well, may I say,
Yeah, for sure.
It depends. There are, I mean, of course, we have not researched the issue of work trainings in depth and in all rural areas. This is not the field that we, let's say, specialize or focus upon, but I think that in some rural areas, there are some work trainings that are related to the economic specialization of that regions. And in some other regions, there are also trainings that are not relevant. My basic idea is that the problem with the rural areas is that there are not a lot of work trainings offered. I do not believe that there are not a lot of attractive offers, at least attractive offers for training that are offered to young people. It's, let's say, a spontaneous or a not systematical and patternized situation. And whenever something is not systematic, it usually do not delivers important results. This is my idea.
Can I add something?
Yes,
Of course.
And what we have found is also, policies regarding training are also depend also on institutions, on employment centers. So sometimes in metropolitan regions, there are well qualified people in the employment centers, and they try to do work with people, also with low-skilled people, young people. And so, they try to match the needs of the local labor markets with the needs of and the skills of needs. However, in some places that are, isolated, the employment centers do not act so well, and they do not perform such kind of training courses, let's say, for needs. So we can say that in some isolated regions, training is not does not match with the needs of people in vulnerable people, let's say.
Thank you, Athena. Claudia, please.
I have a question regarding the research. I want to know if you look at different categories of needs, or you consider needs as a general category, because if we look at, let's say, young people with disabilities or migrants, because you mentioned that you have as target group also migrant young people. Do you have some specific findings regarding these categories of needs and specific, let's say, policy proposals for this?
So now, would you like to say which types of needs we are focusing upon?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That needs is a heterogeneous group of people, so coming from different situations and backgrounds. So we do not focus on specific parts. We focus on the young women, female needs, and the migrants. We don't focus on other groups on specific groups of needs. So yes, we don't have.
Yes. In other words, Claudia, we mostly focus on the most populated groups of needs in our countries and in our regions that have finished the secondary school. We focus a lot of women. And a lot of, and we did some work on migrants, of a refugee background migrants that are non-natives and that are also needs. We haven't done enough, or we have done almost nothing for very specific groups of needs, like those facing disabilities, like those that face mental problems, like those with the Roma background, which we have many of them in Greece as well. But we have not done research on those that are involved in illegal or they are illegal activities, or they are drug addicted. These are very good in terms of, they are very intriguing, at least for me, groups, but it's not easy to approach them. You need extra research tools. You have to be oriented towards them in order to study them, and you need to focus upon them from the very first moment. So our focus is more or less mostly on the mainstream group of NEETs, which of course comprises the majority of NEETs in at least in the European South.
Okay, thank you, Stelios. Thank you, Effie.
Okay, maybe we can close with all the questions and the comments from the group from Greece. We like you to thank Stelios, Athena, and Effie for this interesting presentation and the overview of these southern countries that are very interesting remarks. We would like to remind you that in more or less middle of July, we'll have another webinar about NEETs outreach strategies. So stay tuned with our newsletter. We would like also to remind you that you can visit our website and find information how to become a member, and also find all the deliverables and that I presented early in the webinar. So many thanks to one more time to Stelios, Athena, and Effie for their time and availability does their work. And also thank you to all that are here assisting the webinar.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. Very nice to meet you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye to all.
Bye.
Have a nice day.
See you. Have a nice summertime.